to the Balanced AI podcast, a show that provides balanced perspectives for how education should approach AI and how to improve data quality for AI. Today, Doug and Paul are going to be taking a deeper dive into assessing your current data landscape, unlocking data silos, and laying the foundation for data management and governance in the education sector. They unpack a lot of insightful perspectives and guidance that many institutional leaders are needing today. Now here's Doug and Paul.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced AI podcast. I'm Doug Potts, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Paul Roberge. Hi, Paul.
How you doing, Doug?
Doing great. Before we get started, I'd like to set the stage by recapping highlights from our previous episode, Steps to Become AI Ready in the Education Industry. In the last episode, we reinforced the critical need for a comprehensive data landscape assessment. And we stressed the importance of conducting this assessment as setting the stage for AI readiness initiatives. This ensures that your data, your governance, your integrations, and your management strategies are aligned and effective. Today, we're diving deeper into how you as an institutional leader can assess your current data landscape, unlock data silos in your environment, and establish an effective data management and governance to guide your institution forward. Paul, before we dive into the specifics, can you share with us a little bit why it's so crucial for institutions to thoroughly assess their data landscape?
Absolutely, Doug. We hear all the time institutions talking about how they don't understand what's happening in different departments with data. That data is being managed by people that shouldn't be touching data. And what they're dealing with is just a lack of understanding of the systems, the data models, the governance, if there's any management of the data in any centralized way. So the first step would be to understand what's in place today. And part of that is to just ask the question, what systems do we have in our architecture? And laying that out, and then looking at those systems and looking at grabbing the metadata out of those systems as a next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And the assessment actually spans across hardware, software, and infrastructure. So you need to go through the process. It's important to go through the process of looking at your existing servers, your storage, network infrastructure, evaluating the software, tools, and platforms, and then also including the data that supports these systems. So it's a fairly large and broad assessment that needs to occur. Specifically, though, when we're talking about AI readiness in the realm of data, we're focusing specifically on the schemas and metadata that are present throughout the organization.
And that's right, Doug. I mean, just if you take that one step further and you start to look at things like, well, I might be in a hybrid environment, so I have data that's quote unquote on premise behind some maybe firewall or some servers that I may manage or have some other company manage for me as an institution, and the data that's in the cloud. It gets to be super complex, but that's what institutions need to do. They need to take inventory where that data resides, what systems, what architectures that they've employed, and really catalog that, document that so they understand at least where the data is residing.
So doing that scan of the landscape, of the data landscape, is imperative to be able to take that first step in building AI readiness. Until we understand what we're dealing with, we are unable as an institutional leader to really determine the extent of the silos that exist, basically out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
When it comes to the benefits of unlocking data silos, I would think that immediately what would come to mind are there's several significant benefits that we would receive. Number one, we should be able to see better data quality, because if we have silos, data may be fragmented. Also, if we're having data that's brought together and we're unifying it, I think we would also have the ability to have enhanced collaboration. Because when we start looking at data throughout the organizational landscape, throughout the entire ecosystem, that data could be in any number of different locations. And that brings up the term data silos. Can you talk a little bit about what a data silo is and how it impacts AI readiness?
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, data silos is just another term for your systems that you have out there. Anything that has a database in it. That could be a SaaS application. It could be your SIS application, your student information system that's either on-premise or it's in the cloud. It could be a database, a data warehouse. essentially any data store would be considered a data silo. And what institutions need to do is take note of where those are, again, as we talked about, and unlock them so that you can start to understand what type of data model or data is in those systems. Many times it's provided by vendors. The vendors understand their data models, but the institutions need to at least be aware of them and be able to get at that metadata so that they can start to catalog and to document those systems and those data models. And one of the things to point out here is what types of technologies help with understanding silos or your systems or your SaaS applications. And what a lot of the institutions are doing or thinking about are bringing in an integration platform, or also known as an IPaaS, integration platform as a service. And that's just essentially a middleware technology. It allows you to do integrations, but also connect with those systems when you're doing the integrations to unlock the data that's there from a metadata standpoint. So IPaaS today can allow you to be able to pull out the data structures of those underlying systems, and that's a key part of the use case of an IPaaS. So a recommendation would be to have some sort of a strategy around an integration platform that allows you to do that, so you can enable those the unlocking of the data silos.
And that's an interesting point, because you mentioned data schema and metadata,
Right.
and I would and what we're doing here when we're going through this AI readiness assessment, we're also going through the process of inspecting the data that we're maintaining. From that standpoint, I think it's very salient to point out the difference between what a schema and metadata is when we're talking about data, and the role they play in AI readiness. So, a data schema is, it defines the structure in the data that's organized within a system. It's how the data is stored, it's how the data is accessed. So understanding the schema is essential for ensuring that there is, data integration efforts that will be ultimately successful, because that is the data that we're going to be crossing across the institution. Now, the metadata is the more of the meaning and context of the data.
Correct.
It includes details like the origin of the data, the structure, its usage from a business standpoint, its relationship to other data, which is critical in understanding and managing data. From the standpoint of AI readiness, leveraging AI effectively, an institution is going to need to have a deep understanding of those data structures. So this is where, when we're talking about identifying the data silos, unlocking them, and then ultimately supporting them through data integration using like an IPaaS, understanding those data schemas and metadata is paramount.
Yeah, in addition to that, I'd like to add a little bit to that, Doug, is when you're unlocking the silos and you're grabbing the metadata, which is really sort of it's describing the structure of the data that's stored in those systems,
Right.
You're at an opportune point to be able to start to add additional metadata or attributes to help describe it. So commonly this is known as data dictionaries. And this is where you get a version of the data structure known as a data dictionary that an analyst or a business user can understand. So we're now exposing the data, we're unlocking it in a way that business users can understand it. When you're in the schema level, or you're looking at the more deeper technical architectural or structure of a data, that is more of the schema, which is more of a technical person, an engineer, would understand. So it's important to get the data out, the schemas out, then convert them into data dictionaries so they can be treated with additional documentation, as you mentioned, with business users, with analysts.
And this opens the door for enterprise data management. And when we talk about enterprise data management, what we're talking about are the practices and the technologies used to manage data, and this is important, as a valuable asset across the entire organization. So when we look at the steps that we've spoken to already, we've identified that silos exist. We've identified that we need to start unlocking them. We've identified that we need to have the schemas and metadata documented. We need to create a environment that's going to support smooth integrations across systems and enhance governance. And enterprise data management is essential, right? So that we ensure that the data is reliable, accessible, and secure. These are all key factors for AI readiness.
Yeah, and as part of that, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to have really good data governance if there's not a way to manage the data. And this is where a lot of institutions have challenges. They want to have a data governance strategy, but they don't have the tooling, they don't have the structure in place around data management. So it is a precursor. Putting the right data management technologies, procedures in place helps you move towards the data governance levels that you're seeking to be at. And then, of course, if you're bringing in, we talked about this already a couple different times, if you're thinking about bringing in Gen AI or AI technologies into the institution, it wants quality governed data to be used with it. So this is sort of that precursor, that prerequisite that needs to be put in place for really good Gen AI or AI strategy.
And it makes me think of the phrase that we've been using since the onset of the episodes is, institutions getting their data act together. So it sounds like
Right.
the governance would be, once you have your data act together, this is maintaining your act and keeping it functional. So data governance is a collection of policies, procedures, and standards that ensures quality, security, and compliance within the institution. And the development of the framework is reliant on a few components that need to be present to make data governance work. So those words that we hear when we hear of data governance being implemented are, data stewardship, data quality management, data security and privacy, and then ultimately the continuous monitoring of the governance program.
That's absolutely correct, Doug.
Right.
And when, to do data quality well, it goes back to,
Right.
do you understand your data? Do you have access to the data models or the schemas to be able to build the dictionaries? And if you're building the dictionaries, you're describing the data, you're documenting the data. You're now at the data steward level, which is more of less of a technical role, more of a business level type role that has domain expertise, that understands what the data is being used for and why. Things for like business process automation or it's business intelligence. And then if the data stewards are understanding that data, they can apply then the quality principles or best practices to the data. So a lot of the quality issues that institutions face is because they don't have good data management practices in place. And in the institutional processes, or if you look at functional areas, it just breaks down kind of very simply. There are admissions data stewards. There are
Right.
recruiting data stewards.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So there are enrollment data stewards. There are student success or advisement data stewards. And if you go on throughout the institution, look at the different functional areas, it's those people that understand what they're doing from a business process standpoint or business intelligence, if they're looking at analytics, why they need the data for business purposes. And so getting them involved in this process and in these policies around data management is crucial.
And I think one of the things that once these individuals throughout the organizations have been identified within their respective role and area of responsibility, now we're stepping into the steps that we can begin to take to conduct the data audit. We need to be able to sit down as institutional leaders and feel reliably sure that the stakeholders and the stewards are able to support taking that very first step in any data management or governance initiative, and that's inventorying the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in addition to that, I think institutions we're seeing them consider working with experts or consultants that can help them with their data stewards to be able to take advantage of the technologies and the processes or the approach around working with data. Let's face it, many people working in an institution have day jobs. They're not full-time data stewards. And so having a third party there to help support them through this process can make a huge difference. Not only that it gets done, but it gets done right.
Right. Well, I think that's a good point. Bringing in, third-party experts who live and breathe this stuff definitely can help. When we're looking at, all of the different responsibilities our stewards within an institution would have as a day job, as you mentioned, Paul, their area of expertise, their wheelhouse, is the operations of the institution, of the college or university.
Correct.
And bringing in the third party expert who has worked across the industry and is able to immediately bring value can help actually reduce the cost and investment it would take to get these initiatives moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Doug.
All right, Paul, we've covered a lot of ground today on the essential steps that are necessary to become AI ready. As we come to the end of this discussion, let's shift gears and quickly revisit the key points we covered and look ahead to what's coming up next. So today we emphasize the importance of starting with a thorough data landscape, assessing and unlocking data silos as an essential step in becoming AI ready and establishing effective enterprise data management, highlighting the understanding of data schemas and metadata, creating data dictionaries, maintaining data quality and consistency across your institution, and also stressed the importance of building a robust data governance framework to support sustainable AI adoption and long-term data management success. Now, I strongly encourage our listeners to take the first step towards AI readiness by initiating a comprehensive data assessment within your organization. This isn't just about identifying what data you have, but truly understanding how it is being used and where it can be optimized. So engaging in this process now will set the foundation for all future AI initiatives. If your institution lacks in-house expertise, don't hesitate to bring in specialists who can understand the unique challenges that you're facing within your institution. Their guidance can be invaluable to ensuring that your data landscape is not just assessed, but fully prepared to support your strategic goals. Finally, listeners, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll dive deeper into AI readiness, focusing on data integration and process automation.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We hope you found our deep dive on assessing the data landscape to establish data management and governance as insightful and actionable. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe to hear from us each week as we provide content to help your institution succeed with data quality and AI. Stay tuned for more on AI readiness and the future of data in education. Until next time, this is Balanced AI.